He is the grandson of a plumber. He is the star that left them in the dust. He is the prince of pro wrestling. He is Cody Rhodes.
He is the one, he is the only, he is Cody Rhodes. Thank you so much for joining the two-man power trip of wrestling.
Oh, no, thank you guys for having me. Brandy will be happy to know that you used her intro because she did not make me aware of what she was going to say when we were at Battle of Los Angeles. She just kind of did it, and then it was pretty raucous. Just the overall, like it entertained the hell out of me. So I was glad she didn't tell me. It was a nice surprise.
Yeah, definitely. Give our best to Brandy for that because it was a tip of the cap indeed, because it is an awesome intro from a very, very talented ring announcer, and everything that she says in there is just, it's absolutely true. The star that left them in the dust and the grandson of a plumber, obviously that is true, but with that star that left them in the dust, and we talk about being the hottest free agent, so to speak, in professional wrestling, your arrival on the independent scene, like I said, it sent that jolt through the whole entire industry that I think it really needed. But do you feel that jolt joining independent wrestling and being able to make that list that you made that we've all seen the picture of and cross things off your list one by one, is this something that you knew it would materialize like this? Is this something that you're so proud to see that you've been able to make an impact so far in independent wrestling?
Well, I think it's been really flattering as far as the jolt you speak of, so to say, and the reactions and the attendance at these independent events. When I made the list, it was very measured and well thought of in terms of who I wanted to mix it up with, but also in terms of who would be possible to mix it up with, and it's very enriching to kind of check the boxes as we go. And early on, I realized that you can't put this out there unless your intentions are that to finish it. And my intentions are to finish the list, and that can be difficult in some areas. Some people are exclusively tied to companies and things of that nature, but I'm kind of hell-bent on making it happen. So I'm very glad it's all materializing and all coming to fruition in a really big, loud way. That's just pretty damn cool.
It's so cool. Just looking at the picture, it's so artistic. It's so well thought out. The picture, the hands. I mean, the list. I mean, it's so cool to see who's on it. And I remember when it came out and the first day it really hit the internet. It sent again another jolt through the interwebs, because we were looking at the names and we're like, wow, this would be a great match, or wow, that would be amazing to see you at the Battle of Los Angeles. And now, as we start seeing these names getting crossed off, we start to see some of these things really coming to fruition, and these matches are happening. Is it exactly what you thought it would be, or has it exceeded your expectations?
It's exceeded expectations. What I've noticed is that some of the independent brands that I've found myself competing at, and people on the list, is there's been a lot of eyes, especially in this day of social media where everything you do really can be out there if you want it to be out there. There have been a lot of eyes on each match, more than just the intimate crowd that that was there that evening. A lot of naysayers, as well as the folks who are supporting this and kind of rallying behind this, either or, tend to want to know what happened each night of the independent run. Like, I'm sure VIP Wrestling, I have a match tomorrow with Chris Hero, and then a match with Brian Fury, and then at WrestlePro Saturday I have Pat Buck. Sunday, Back to Evolve with Johnny Wrestling, Chris Hero, and Drew Galloway. All those matches are getting more of a spotlight, and if that's because of me, I'm pretty happy about that. And I like the pressure that also comes with that, because you You have to deliver. That's the best thing ever is pleasing a fan and shutting up a critic is the best thing just in the world. Is to do that, and the only way to do that is to deliver.
Oh, absolutely. And you see the names on the list and the dream matches, and you really the outcomes that could possibly happen, and then, like you said, some of the the history that there is with the opponents on the list that you did name. And of course, I guess the greatest place to start with that is with Pat Buck, who had your first professional match about a little over a decade ago in OVW, and I know you're headed to WrestlePro this weekend, and WrestlePro puts on a hell of a show, and they're obviously going above and beyond because Ric Flair will be in the building that night, and there's already that big fight feel, and we're not even to the weekend yet. We're still midweek here. But are you eager to get in there with Pat Buck, and any kind of relationship you've been able to keep with Pat Buck over the years? And I know your first match is something you'll never forget, but here he is. He's going to be right in front of you, and I guess it's time to either return the favor or put on another one hell of a show.
I think the equity that's built into the situation with Pat Buck and WrestlePro is really it's just you can't write this stuff. As far as this guy had my very first match in Corden, Indiana, in front of a humble crowd of I want to say 40-something people. At the time, he was the nerd of Pat Buck, and he climbed over the ropes and had a backpack on, and busted his ass in the corner of the ring, and then we had our match, and he did beat me. So I've made it clear that a decade later, I clearly hold grudges, and I aim to even the score. There's a reason. I'm sure you guys have noticed. There's a reason that a lot of guys, when they are released from WWE, or in my case where I released WWE, I guess, whatever. There's a reason that you see a lot of people's first bookings are with WrestlePro, and it's because of Pat Buck's his business savvy. He's a hell of a competitor, but he also has a great business savvy. He tried many times to be part of WWE. He was in OVW when I was there, and he didn't even have a contract. And Paul Heyman and Al Snow, they had him on television. He's very talented, but he took his strength in that being kind of his business savvy and turned it into WrestlePro and Creative Pro, and he should be damn proud of what's going to happen. He's going to lose, but he should be very proud of what's going to happen on Saturday. I'm really looking forward to it. I think Zack Ryder also is really looking forward to it because he's close friends with both me and Pat, and constantly gives me a hard time. Because when I was fired during the Shield Rhodes family rivalry, there was a part of that was like, oh yeah, well I'll go to WrestlePro, and then Zach always claimed that I blew Pat off because obviously I was still with WWE at the time and did the rivalry with the Shield and the Rhodes family. So no, I owe Pat this one, and very very much looking forward to it. Plus, Nature Boy Ric Flair is there. Colt Cabana's there. Kurt Hawkins has his last match before he goes back to WWE. It's turning out to be a really wondrous card, and I'm looking forward to it.
What are your kind of expectations as far as wrestling him 10 years ago and wrestling him now? How much different is this match going to be as from your original match?
Well, I hope it would be a lot different. Mainly because when you're very green at something, as I was at professional wrestling, or very inexperienced, you're also just not that good. And I think Pat and I 10 years later have probably picked a few things up, have probably upped our game. Also, too, when you're a second generation, they assume you just know how to do everything and throw you in there, and then the fans boo you out of the building because, well, he's only here because he's such and such a son. When really, yeah, that's true, but I also didn't, I didn't book this match. I didn't when you have the that name, as I did at the time when I was at OVW. You know, like I got thrust into a match probably far earlier than I should. So if you were there in Corton, Indiana, when Pat Buck and I wrestled, you're going to be just overwhelmed that 10 years later, I think both of us have steadily improved.
Now, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the history of our show. We've been around for a little bit, but last June we were able to do your father, his last ever interview, and it was probably the biggest interview ever in the history of our show, and it was such an honor.
Yeah.
And I just can't believe it. It's an utter shock that we were able to get him on. First of all, I was able to talk to him before we got him on a few times on the phone. Yeah, he gave me his one, I guess it was the house line, and he goes, "I'll give you my other line, Daddy," and then he kept calling me Johnny, which no one ever does, but it's just so funny how welcoming he is and how friendly he is and how he makes you feel like you're important. And then we get him on, on the show, which was just totally surreal. And then he says to us, he goes, "You guys aren't marks. You guys are wrestling historians." So then, he makes us feel great about himself. You just talk about, the legacy of your dad. He always made everyone around him seem, make them feel good about themselves, make them feel better than maybe what they really are.
Well, no, I mean, what you just said, the last thing you just said is the reason for his success. As a performer, he made the fans around him feel really good. In the context, we're speaking and doing an interview, he made you guys feel really good. My dad had a link to the fans. He had a link to his colleagues, his peers. He just had a link. And it was very entertaining to witness from sitting out in the stands, and it was very entertaining to witness if you were in the ring with him, or in you guys' case, speaking to him on the phone. He has a link with people. Anything that was, a people-pleasing industry, he could have really excelled at. He would have been an excellent preacher. He probably could have been the president of the United States had they just let him write his own speeches. I mean, he just has a connection with people, and I think at the heart of it all, it's very simple why. It's genuine. Wrestling is about selling tickets, and then selling tickets because they had a good fan consumer, experience at the time. In my dad's case, I don't know if it really was ever about selling tickets as much as it was about just making people feel happy. That made him feel happy. And that's why he did it for so long. It was just genuine. There's so many con artists and shakedown folks, not just in wrestling, but in show business. Show business is a shady industry, but he was the least shady individual you'd ever meet. And I'm glad that, nice guys don't always finish last. And, Dusty certainly didn't.
Unreal. And just, Mount Rushmore. If you could put that Mount Rushmore of professional wrestlers, you got to put Dusty on there for sure. And, was he a big influence on you actually getting into the wrestling business, or did he not really want you to kind of follow in his footsteps?
I think it's difficult to say because he told me, he verbalized to me he did not want me to be a pro wrestler. He wanted me to be an actor or anything else. He wanted me to take my scholarship offer I had to go amateur wrestle, and he wanted me to be anything else, but he also knew I had, just from fandom, that I had a love for it. And he would bring me around it. So when you're backstage and you're around some of these larger-than-life characters, guys with spiked shoulder pads, guys painting their face, these huge men, these colorful, elaborate costumes, the just overall pageantry, the pyro, the production. I mean, what the hell else are you going to want to do? And I fell for it. And he knew that, so he would say, "Hey, I don't want you to do it," but he didn't put up much of a fight when I told him, "Hey, I actually really want to give this a true undivided attention and give it a true run." he helped make it happen for me. And then he as soon as he helped open that door for me, he stepped back and never he did not really have much measure on my career after that as far as like input. He was no longer on the creative team. He wasn't at developmental with me. We did some stuff together from time to time, and he helped give me my first break on television with Randy Orton. But that was one of the great things about him, is he let me do my thing, and he didn't want me to bleach my hair blonde or do his elbows or try and talk like he did. He actually was the one who told me. He said you should dye your hair black and just be mean as a snake and just be the absolute opposite of me. So yeah, no, there's just thinking about him now, man, I just get super misty-eyed because I miss my father so much and wasn't ready to lose him. But that's what happened. And some of these arenas and buildings I've been in lately, they remind me more of him than anything. So it feels good to have a connection with him like that again.
Absolutely, and the amazing legacy that he left behind, but all that advice and that influence that he had on you, how do you kind of use that looking forward, looking into the future? How do you use his advice?
So, I was kind of saying this in the last my last answer, and maybe a better way to I didn't use his advice so much in his life, but in his death I've used his advice considerably more. It's kind of one of those what would Dusty do situations, and I found myself asking that a lot, and you just have to, I think his gut was similar to my gut. And maybe I didn't follow my gut for a while there at kind of the, my latter days at WWE. So to be able to follow my gut, just that reminds me so much of him, because my dad was not a overthinker. He was not an over-analyzer. You can ask a lot of the guys who went through his communications class at NXT. It was he wanted to make you feel comfortable, because when you're comfortable and you're speaking, that audience is also comfortable, or you're going to make them uncomfortable as much as you can. You know how that all works. But I just hope we have a similar gut, and I find myself in a lot of those what would Dusty do situations, and I don't do so much what Cody would do anymore. I've lately been doing a lot of what would Dusty do.
Now, I read in another interview, it said that he kind of gave you advice years ago. Obviously, you didn't follow it, like you said, until he ended up passing on. But, the advice of leaving the WWE, was that really something that he wanted, or was that just something like, yeah, you should think about maybe doing it to your career?
Well, I think it's hard for people to believe this, because it just all comes out after the fact that I'm no longer with WWE. But he was very firm about it, actually. We had the discussion in Miami at WrestleMania, because I was very disappointed in the direction that I was going. And he thought that would be best, because at the time he was thinking more of a leverage standpoint. Like, well, if you put your foot down, essentially, if you man up, if you feel you've been slapped in the face, slap them back in the face, and you leave. They'll know what they were missing. And he was speaking both from a business standpoint, but also because I was his favorite, because as I was his son, and he's speaking from a dad standpoint as well. And that's why I didn't take it, because that emotional connection to it. That just seems, like too much of an emotional decision. And then I look back at it, and I'm glad I didn't actually ask for my release then. But there were times that came after that was definitely moments where I should have said, okay, things are not, I'm not getting closer to my goal. I'm getting farther away. And the best thing to do is maybe take a step back and take all this in. So yeah, no, that was something he was very firm on after WrestleMania in Miami. He wanted me to I don't even remember what his plan was. I think he always would say, you just go to L.A. I think he thought if you just go to L.A., you're guaranteed to get a part, which is not the case at all, and incredibly difficult. But that was always his plan for me.
Now, was this before you knew Stephen Amell, I guess, or was this around the time you were kind of becoming, allied with?
What with Stephen? As far as like my dad and like the LA stuff. No, I didn't meet Stephen until a Monday Night Raw in Long Island, the one where we just had a brief interaction in the front row. I didn't, and that I did all unbeknownst to my superiors at WWE. I set it up with the cameraman. I made Kevin Dunn aware of it. I made a few of the writers aware of it just so that I couldn't totally get my head chewed off. But I thought this is a great idea. This is better than a 3-minute match that I'm going to have with Neville, even though Neville is exceptional. But this is better for everybody. This is mainstream crossover, and Steven and Arrow, the whole Berlantiverse has a huge built-in fan base, so I wanted to get it done. Once that happened, though, that all just steamrolled, man. That all got out of hand. Now that I think about it, like that was the best thing that could have happened to Stardust was to find a comic book hero, considering that Stardust was pretending to be a comic book villain. Nothing better than finding someone who is an actual DC property, Warner Brothers hero, and that was a hell of a time.
And what was your experience like with Stephen Amell, obviously with Arrow coming up, as you actually will play, villain on the show?
Very enriching, the experience. Episode 3, October 19th, I believe, is the date my episode airs. It's the 3rd episode of the season, and I loved it. It's different than live TV because you get multiple takes at trying to get it near perfection. You get takes at taking it a completely different way in terms of range from where you might have been in the previous take. I did kind of laugh at the fact that I think they look at your resume, see pro wrestler, and assume you have any clue how to do stunts, and then you get on set and you just beat the tar out of a stuntman, and don't realize that that's not how you're supposed to do it. So the first few days were a little bit trial by fire as far as learning stunt work and the strikes and such. But I think that's the thing fans will get a real kick out of this episode is the combat that they bring to the game. The combat is almost, gosh, I want to say it's 95% Steven and me. And, guys like James Bamford, and they're wonderful stunt coordinators, but they really let us put a lot of our own physical action into it and dress it up how we wanted. So if you were fans of the initial interaction at SummerSlam, this is like a continuation on top of that, and hopefully it goes forward. I can't say anything about my character in the episode. I'm just thinking that it would be nice if I made my way pretty much made the rounds. Not only is there Arrow, there's Flash, there's Legends of Tomorrow, there's Supergirl. The Berlantiverse is strong, and I hope to be part of it.
Yeah, it's so cool, the world that has opened up with the rise of the comic book television show and the popularity and the pop culture now that goes alongside it, and obviously with Arrow and, like you said, all those spin-offs that have come out of it. It's just unbelievable. It seems like there's always something new coming about for it, and yes, that opens up additional doors. But in talking about Stephen Amell and talk about some of the other cast members that are on Arrow, did you find yourself fitting in there just really well, out of the gate, because of the fact that, wrestling being what it is and it being so physical, that these guys who are then channeling a physical role themselves, did you guys kind of have an instant camaraderie on the set?
I think that's probably a fair way. Yeah, I think I felt I melded into their their process really well. And I didn't want to come in and know everything, because in reality, as far as acting is concerned, I know nothing. So I wanted to be very comfortable before I even started shooting. So I actually came to set a few days early and just watched, learned the vernacular. There's more than just action and cut, which I would have thought that was it. Learn the vernacular, learn the director, the cinematographer, the script supervisor, all these things that were just wild to me, and to get to know the cast a little bit. But the cast, as in season 5, the Green Arrow he's preparing a new team essentially, and the cast they have is they're very good at what they do, and they really hit that, like, they're of my generation. They're of my generation, and that's like the nicest thing, because it's a show that I like. I'm a fan of Arrow, so to be on it is a huge privilege.
Yeah, it's one of the best shows, I think, that any kind of fan of comic book or even episodic TV, you can get into it. And there's so many possibilities now with those universes opening up to these TV studios. And obviously, that is a very, very cool option for you. But now, there's some other, if we can jump back into wrestling, there's some other kind of rumors going around out there involving you and Brandy. And if we could touch on Brandy really quickly, her role for you as the personal ring announcer, looking at the list, seeing the checkbox. Funny side note, I said to John yesterday as we were preparing for the interview, I must have completely glanced over that and didn't get that at first until I saw the Battle of Los Angeles, tagline by Brandy. But what has her role been for you in the post-WWE world and venturing onto the independent scene?
Well, Brandy likes to burn the midnight oil as far as, like, queen entrepreneur. She has so many things she wants to do, and now that she's not tied to kind of the schedule that we had with WWE, getting a lot of them done is really, it's exciting to see. She trained to be a wrestler at FCW for 6 months, and then she trained at the Performance Center before she went on the road ring announcing for SmackDown for a solid year. So when you train with Norman Smiley and Sarah Del Rey and you're at the Performance Center of all places, you definitely want to test what you're able to do. You definitely want to have yourself a fight or two, and see what you're capable of. So I know that, amongst other things, Brandy is actively, because she now trains at VIP Wrestling in Dallas, she's actively looking to get in the ring. And I think you guys, sooner than later, hopefully will see something like that. I think she isn't that keen on ring announcing unless it's for me, and then she's really friendly about it. But other than that, the things that people don't know about Brandy always are like, damn, like, so, like, if you look her up and you see, oh, she's a bikini model, some people just write that off. They don't realize, like, she graduated from the University of Michigan. She went to a master's program at the University of Miami. She almost competed in the Olympics in figure skating. This woman is just like, she's a fire breather, man. And I'm excited for the world, the wrestling world, and also just those who are following the stuff she does. I'm excited for them to see more of it. She's very special.
Oh, definitely. And I'm not sure if you realize that, but the wrestling world sometimes can be a little one-sided and not really doing their due diligence to look into the backgrounds of the finer things of somebody's career and really stick to one aspect of it. But like I said, there's some rumors circulating around last couple of days about your future and Brandy's future together. But the two of you being a package deal, what does that mean to you to see how far you guys have come, not only as a couple, but now you two yourselves are a brand together?
Well, rumors. Uh-oh, am I still here?
Yeah, you're here. You're good.
I heard the British woman again, guys.
No, you're good.
I heard
You're good.
her.
No British woman here. We're all set.
Okay, no, I think rumors and speculation are wonderful because we all love them. We are the ones who read and perpetuate them in pro wrestling. That means the wrestlers and the fans, so we're equally guilty. I don't like beating over the head that we're this super happy married couple. That's obvious. That's very much on the surface. But I also I want fans to be able to see what she's able to do. So if I'm able to help that, I'm certainly going to help that because I think folks will be impressed. I think as far as some of like the rumors as of late about branching out and different promotions and stuff like that, a lot of that is just rumor. But here's a good way to look at it. If I put your name on the list, I intend to make that happen. So if you're in a company and I have to come to that company to make the match happen, I have no issue doing that. Not in the slightest. That's only good for the fans and the brands and myself. And then as far as Brandy and I being a package deal, that's a fun. You're kind of opening my eyes to it as we're talking because it's all new to me too. You know, like that's fun to. Her and I love each other, so it's cool to like we're not pretending. And I got a huge kick out of her throwing her shoes at Marty Scurll at the Battle of Los Angeles, or slapping him, or just her overall. She's been around Dusty. She's been around me. She knows these little things about wrestling that it takes other people forever to figure out and pick up. And I like seeing that savvy that she has about herself. I really enjoy it.
As we start to wind it down a bit here, I got to go back to the list because obviously, we talked about personal ring announcer. We talked about Pat Buck. You had a chance to wrestle a hero, which you mentioned before. Kurt Angle, the Battle of Los Angeles, which was awesome. You just mentioned Marty Scurll. Obviously, he's not on the list, but another great guy that could be added to a list like that. But what do you think about checking off every name of that list? What about Adam Cole and Dalton Castle? Do you think that as you head into ROH, those are two guys like, hey, guys, these are the two guys I really, really want to work with?
Well, I think on my radar, no doubt, Final Battle is the biggest thing for me. It's my WrestleMania this year is Final Battle, and they're both exceptional events. Final Battle being Ring of Honor's biggest, and my first opportunity to go into Hammerstein Ballroom. The ROH, my time at ROH is not going to be limited to one show. As far as I'm not just doing Final Battle, taking my money and leaving. I'm very excited. I rode the roads with Daniel Bryan, Cesaro, Kevin, guys who were ROH guys, and to be able to share the link now and say, hey, I'm gonna be in a ROH ring. I'm gonna know all about the Code of Honor. To be in a company with, I consider some elite guys. Dalton Castle, the Young Bucks. Adam Cole. I mean, there's a Warbeard Hansen, Dijak. I mean, there's Christopher Daniels. Man, I'm an oversharer, so I could sit here and just say everybody's name. But I'm very excited about joining their roster and the matchups that are going to happen. But it's like we said, the list. Adam Cole is at the very top of it. The list isn't numbered, it isn't prioritized, but if I put your name on the top, it means you were the first person I thought about. So that is the one. That is the one. That is the thing I want. That is, in wrestling, sometimes you need to know. That's the one I need to know. Dalton Castle, I watched him at the Battle of Los Angeles. One of the boys borrowed eyeliners from my wife, so I'm very much looking forward to any interaction with Dalton Castle. As far as I've worked with very flamboyant characters in wrestling myself, my brother being perhaps the most. So Dalton Castle is one I'm looking forward to for sure. You'll get both those matches in Ring of Honor, or I'll do my damnedest to make sure you do.
And obviously, you mentioned Young Bucks; they were part of there. But also with Ring of Honor, which is absolutely fantastic, is the relationship with New Japan Pro Wrestling. And I'm not sure how many fans know about Shibata, but it's awesome that he's on your list. And it kind of was shocking. I was like, wow, I guess Cody is such a smart wrestling guy. He sees great talent all around the world. So if you just talk about Shibata a little bit and New Japan Pro Wrestling, because some of the best wrestling in the world comes from that company and from that guy, quite frankly.
Well, New Japan Pro Wrestling is the hottest thing in wrestling. I mean, WWE is taking things that were popular in New Japan and putting them on their program smartly because of how the success that New Japan has absolutely had. So when you're in the bubble, that is when you work for WWE, or I guess when you're just focused solely on WWE and what you're doing and who the top person in your company is, wrestling against and how you can kind of navigate that situation, you can stay in that bubble or you can look outside of it for inspiration is a good way to put it. When NXT really blew up, and NXT is essentially just a very well done, well produced, let me bring every indie all-star into this promotion that you guys already have some equity in, and let's polish up the diamonds that they already are, essentially. That makes you look, well, where'd they come from? Did they come from Ring of Honor? Did they come from New Japan? And it puts more of a spotlight on the independent promotions, NXT does, as well as puts spotlights on the international promotions. Shibata, I don't know if you've watched. Shibata he's just legit a natural-born killer, and probably the riskiest name I put on the list. But he has a magnetism and charisma that isn't in the talking, and it isn't so much in what he wears. It's just there. It's just in the eyes. It's just somebody that I was a fan of, and I had the opportunity when I decided to leave. I have the opportunity to get in there with guys that I am a fan of, and he is one of them. As far as New Japan goes, he's my favorite. And the pre-existing relationship with Ring of Honor and New Japan helps potentially make that happen.
Which would be amazing. And if I could say my favorite New Japan guy, I mean, Okada and Tanahashi, the ace and the former ace, obviously, 1 and 2, they're amazing, but Tomohiro Ishii, the little stone pitbull, I got to say.
Yeah.
I would love to see you versus him. I mean, talk about a nice little stiff matchup. What do you think about a guy like him? Have you seen him before?
Yes, no, 100%. I think these matches are better suited in Japan as far as, like, I want to go to Japan to do almost all of this, if that makes any sense. I think you can, whenever you have, like, kind of the crossovers with, I think a true actual set of events in Japan with New Japan is hopefully on our radar. As far as, like, my management is concerned, I'm fairly certain it is, and it's going to happen, but nothing is for real until you're standing in the ring across from whoever it is, Tanahashi, Shibata, whoever it is. But I think you're going to get a lot of that. I'm trying very hard to cover a lot of ground in kind of a short period of time, but just cover a lot of ground in general. I think this is the first time where someone has been able to go anywhere and respect the places that he's going, and also respect himself and be able to put on some of these dream matches. It all stems from the list, silly as that damn thing was, but it creates the idea that I really can go anywhere, and that's the idea is the reality. I'm excited about it all.
It would be kind of cool if, the beginning of January rolls around, Wrestle Kingdom at the Tokyo Dome, you on one end and Shibata on the other. I mean, not to book for a fantasy book for New Japan, but they can make that happen pretty easily, right?
I think Wrestle Kingdom becoming such a big event in the last few years. It's always been a big event, but in the last few years, like America getting such a being able to view it so accessibly and easily, I think that would be an exceptional matchup. I think you give him a call, man. Give him a call. Tell him what you're thinking. I think people are going to be happy. I didn't, like I said when I was telling you guys, the names on the list are not just names that I thought would be good. They're also names that I thought for sure we can make them happen, and slowly but surely we're making them happen. Well, not even that slowly, but we're making it happen.
And we had AJ Styles on last year right before he fought Nakamura at Wrestle Kingdom. He coined the term, he's going to have a Wrestle Kingdom moment instead of the WrestleMania moment. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and AJ Styles, what a great guest to have. Talking about someone, a journeyman in the industry, but also somebody who knows what they're talking about. I think he saw the appeal, not unlike myself. He saw the appeal in going all around and not being tied to one place in particular, and building his brand that way, but also helping various brands along the way. That's a pretty smart man and a good guest to have.
Now, if I could just kind of rewind it back just a little bit here, I just wanted to ask you, as far as your brother is concerned, as far as Goldust, a.k.a. Dustin Rhodes, is concerned, what kind of valuable lessons has he taught you? Because if you really look at it and look at his career, he was always, the quote-unquote, the natural. He was always good. As soon as he came in, you could tell he had something about him. Always was able to put on good matches. But then there's the other flip of the coin where he's so charismatic and he's such a good character. What have you learned from your brother, in all his many years in the wrestling business?
Man, I am very careful to answer this question because when I answer it, people think I'm just a dick. So I try not to. I'm trying to be as nice as possible. Like, I love my brother. I do, and what he's done in wrestling as far as carving out that character, that the Goldust character at the time he did, the Attitude Era, him being such a huge part of it, being able to roll forward, that's wonderful. But what he's done as a man, as far as in later in his career, he's essentially entering the prime of his career, and he's almost 50, and he's working like he's 20-something. He's completely sober in an industry full of people who say they've kicked drugs and alcohol but are lying to your face. My brother is not. He's 100% sober, and that's like, to me, that's the thing I'm most proud of. On the other hand, we are 16 years apart, so we do not know each other that well. So I always try to vaguely answer questions about him. We don't know each other that well. The most we got to know each other was when we tagged at WWE, obviously, and that was a total just killer time. It was just a great time as far as especially early on, because I didn't think we were going to end up being a tag team, and then we did end up being a tag team, and it kind of like caught fire, a little bit of lightning in the bottle with the Shield, and that was an opportunity I didn't think I was going to get because Dustin was out of our lives. Him and my dad had strife between them. He was out of our lives for a few years, and I didn't think I'd get an opportunity like that. So that was probably where I learned the most and where I got to know my brother the most.
Now, as far as Dustin and wrestling him and everything else, did you expect maybe a bigger feud between you two, like kind of a WrestleMania moment or a WrestleMania blow-off match? Because I know you guys had the Fastlane match, but it felt like you guys kind of maybe should have gotten a big platform for a blow-off for that feud.
I've answered this question 1 million times, and no one ever believes me. So hopefully you guys will believe me. No, I didn't expect to have a WrestleMania match. I know earlier, when I was, I think 2011-12, he was rallying online for that to happen, and people were really behind it. And when he entered the Royal Rumble that year, I believe we were in Phoenix, that Royal Rumble he entered in Phoenix, the reaction to it was just, outstanding, and I thought we would feed the people more off of that moment alone. We didn't, but no, our rivalry was never meant to be any more than it was. It was never meant to go to WrestleMania. I heard from the man himself who writes the checks what I was doing at WrestleMania and what Dustin was doing. So it was never meant to go there. And I guess fans just maybe thought it was, or I think that match sounds a lot better on paper because let's be honest with each other. We had the match at Fastlane, and it's not a good match. So why anyone would want to see it at WrestleMania is beyond me. So it wasn't ever supposed to go to WrestleMania. That's the God honest truth. There's no conspiracy about it. But I liked tagging with him a lot. We did have some fun matches against one another in Europe. That non-televised, those matches that nobody ever sees. That's the best of what WWE offers is those live events. They're just, some of them can really be magical. And that was really fun to do, that for sure.
Now, if I could just ask you, because I know it's kind of like a generic question, but I'm always curious, especially a guy like you that just entered the the indie scene. You're having these great matches all over the world, basically. And, you had a great 10-year run with the WWE. But do you have maybe a favorite match or two that just stick out and, you really look back fondly on it as one of your favorites?
Well, that's a great question. A lot of my favorite matches no one ever saw because they were on live events or on, international tours, where you're able to have a lot more creative freedom in what you do in the ring. But as far as the matches that people would know, some of my favorites. I think I definitely was really thrilled at the prospect of being able to wrestle against Shawn Michaels at SummerSlam with Ted DiBiase and Triple H and Shawn Michaels. That was a really special and feel good thing because Shawn I thought was forcibly retired. I didn't think he'd ever return, and then he's my hero in wrestling. To be able to smack him in the face and be able to stand across from him and kind of see if you can keep up with the Heartbreak Kid was a really great moment. Also, I'm just thinking off the top of my head because I really don't have a top number one. I don't even have a top five, I don't think. But another really fun thing was everything I ever did with Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio and I had a Falls Count Anywhere match one night that just I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. I think I gave him a disaster kick off of a bar, and we just did some crazy, fun, wild stuff. The Rey Mysterio for sure. Gosh, there's so many. Anytime I got to mix it up with Daniel Bryan, especially when the brand split was still in place and we were on SmackDown. Randy Orton and we probably had over 1,000 matches on live events that no one's ever seen. That I learned probably the most in my career from anybody. I learned from Randy Orton. Christian and I had a really good natural chemistry between one another, especially because there wasn't much as far as story is concerned. They kind of came across as cold matches. And then I'm going to stop because I'm going to sit here and just yammer all day. Another one I really liked is Big Show and I's tables match in Chicago. Only because him falling through the table, just accidentally stepping through the table because he's a legit giant. His face to this day is just when his foot goes through accidentally because he slips off the apron. His face is just the best thing I've ever seen. It just makes me laugh as far as giant problems in general. And that one was really fun. And then he just kicked my ass afterwards. And I was in terrible shape after taking going through two different tables. But that one was a lot of fun. And now I'm going to shut up because I'm just literally reminiscing on old matches.
Hey, we absolutely, we love it. It's just great. But, for me, I'm just very curious. The list, it's so intriguing, and it's so cool when it came out, and it was on Twitter and everything else. But for the list, when that list is completely checked off, and you're basically, you somehow completed that amazing list, you think that you're going to put maybe a list part 2 out there, or what do you think? You're going to add some more names to that awesome list?
Well, I think the original is the original, and I don't know if if it will have the same sting that first one did, but I think there were some names that should have been on the list that I'm just kind of in my mind. I almost consider them like amendments to the list. One of them being a very obvious, and the reason he's not on the list is because I got bad information from one of my colleagues at WWE who told me he was WWE bound, but Kenny Omega is a very obvious one that should have been on that list. So that one is one of those list amendments for sure, and I feel like there's more of those, especially with as you're aware, the British are coming in wrestling. Like they're everywhere and they're exceptional. Marty, Will, Zach. Zach probably should have been on the list too. So I considered him kind of an amendment. But there's too much. The WWE is clearly not the only game in town anymore. Considering they're recruiting from all of these places. So there's so many. I definitely could. If I did, I'll take a picture of it and send it to you. I definitely could.
That's so awesome. The list has been so cool to see those names get checked off. And before we wrap it up here, Cody, and we look back at both the legacy of the Rhodes name in professional wrestling as well as what you're going to be doing in 5 years. We like to look at this question from two perspectives, depending on who we're talking to, but I think you're the perfect guy for both ends of it. And that is, in 5 years, what does Cody Rhodes see himself doing either in wrestling? Is he going to be acting? Or will he be continuing to grow the Rhodes legacy and what that means to professional wrestling?
I think 5 years from now, quite the time period. I think I'll be doing exactly what I'm doing right now, because I'm very happy doing it. I think I'll be hopefully wrestling with Ring of Honor and hopefully wrestling with some of the various independent promotions, hopefully wrestling everywhere, and also on top of that, having the opportunity. I really want to look into acting from a television standpoint. I don't know, film intimidates me a little bit, so something about some of these TV roles, and it would be really fun to give my undivided attention to a recurring television role, and we're actively seeking that out. And I've spent a lot of time in LA. Actually, I'm moving out there in a few weeks, so that's definitely part of my future. Wrestling has been part of my past, present, it's guaranteed to be part of my future. But I think acting will get a big spotlight in the next 5 years, or I sure hope it does.
That's so awesome, and we definitely look forward to that. And we also look forward to this coming weekend as you invade New Jersey. You get in on the fun over at WrestlePro. Obviously, you said how much that's going to mean to you. But what else does Cody Rhodes have going on, and where can the fans and the listeners of the Two-Man Power Trip of Wrestling find anything and everything in the world of Cody Rhodes?
Best absolute place to the answer to that question, because as you've seen in this conversation alone, I can yammer on forever and ever about various dates and all the great wrestlers who I like, who I want to wrestle, but everything is on my Twitter and my Facebook. Facebook's new. It's got the blue check, so make sure you see the blue check. But at Cody Rhodes on Twitter is where every date for that week alone is pinned up. This week it's Hero, Brian Fury, Pat Buck. The following night it's me and Johnny versus Hero and Drew Galloway. The following weekend, I believe Trevor Lee might be, or following weekend is Tommaso in one of his last independent matches. So it's all there on my Twitter. That's where I keep it organized, because my mind is the least organized thing ever lately. So that it's all on at Cody Rhodes, every event, every day. I'm really good about pushing those all forward.
Awesome. And Cody, obviously this has been so much fun, and we would love to have you back in the future at some point, maybe talk a little bit more about the list. But personally would like to get your take on the last thing that we asked your dad, and that was we would love to get your take now on his epic turn on WCW and when he joined the New World Order. And, of course, that was our lasting legacy with the American Dream.
That was the last thing you asked him, huh? That
was the last thing. If you can believe it, that was actually the last thing we asked him. And, man, did we get a little bit of a kick out of that looking back.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think, I don't know what my dad told you, but one night he came out on SmackDown and he shook Rey Mysterio's hand, but he held onto his hand and he let me sucker punch Rey in the back. And somebody said to him prior, they said, well, Dusty, we don't want the people to boo you. And he looked at them like his eyes were, like he was from Krypton and he could burn their head off with his eyes. And I think he just said nobody is going to boo the American Dream. And if they boo the American Dream tonight, when I wake up tomorrow, they're not going to boo the American Dream. It's just, I've been a lifelong connection with these people. They're not this gosh, I want to say this skirmish is maybe what he said, isn't going to cause that to be any different. So when you look at the NWO thing with Larry Zbyszko and all that, he just made it cool. It wasn't like that was during that period where who'd you want to see, WCW or the NWO? Scott would always ask folks. That was a period where you really just wanted to see the NWO. And Scott Hall, he said it best, cool doesn't expire. It doesn't. And as my dad got older and became kind of an old man wrestler, he was still really, really cool. So I remember as a youngster being really pissed. But that's because my dad did, he brought me up old school, so he didn't really open up about the industry to me. I had to figure the industry out for myself. So I was, see my dad as a, quote, bad guy, unquote, for that. That was a bit of a jarring experience. And the only amateur wrestling match he ever missed of mine was to do that NWO thing. And just that one. He never missed a game or a match or anything else. But I was really pissed at him at the time. I think he knew I was pissed at him.
Yeah, I definitely asked it very tongue-in-cheek. And he said, I said it was an epic turn. He said, if you think that was epic. And then he went on talking about Larry Zbyszko. Actually, the last thing he said on the show was making fun of Larry Zbyszko's Hall of Fame speech. So that was really the lasting impact that the Dream had on the two-man power trip. But again, like I said, it was this has been a ton of fun, and we really wish you nothing but the best. You got two huge supporters here on the two-man power trip, and we would love to have you back in the future.
Yeah, thank you, guys.